Welcome to the Women Writing Podcast. I'm your book coach, Liisa Kovala. I'm a certified fiction and memoir book coach and the author of Like Water for Weary Souls, Sisters Winter War, and Surviving Struthof, and the Hygge House Nordic Cozy Mystery Series. As a Finnish Canadian, I also love my coffee. Take a coffee break with us as we chat about all things writerly with authors and publishing industry professionals. And don't forget to sign up for my Women Writing newsletter on Substack and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great content. In today's episode of Women Writing, I'm having coffee break with J.M. Shaw. Jennifer Shaw is a Canadian author of fantasy fiction who lives in Alberta with her husband and 2 young children. For Shaw, storytelling has always been more than a passion. It's a compass, a sanctuary, a way to make sense of the chaos. In 2019, Shaw was diagnosed with autism and ADHD, a turning point that brought clarity to a lifetime of feeling too much or too different. Her intense focus, emotional depth, and ability to live inside fictional worlds became not flaws, but the superpowers of a neurodivergent mind. These qualities shape her stories, infusing them with realism, heart, and meaning, and giving her the courage to finally share her creative works. Her worlds may be fantastical, but her characters, flawed, searching, and deeply human, resonate on a personal level. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm very good.
It's so great to see you. We were talking just before we started recording that the last time I think we saw each other was Radio Red's show. Was it
Yeah, that
Radio
was a
Red?
few months ago.
A
Yeah,
few
it was
months
the
ago.
creativity. I can't remember the full name of the show, but I think it was a
Yeah.
creativity show or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. It
and we
was
were both
fun.
guests there
Yeah.
talking about our
And
work.
Anne-Marie Mawhinney, I think, was with us.
Yep.
And I feel like there was a fourth. Or was it just the
Bonnie was the
three?
fourth, our
Oh,
guest,
that's
our
right.
host.
That's right, our
Yes.
host. It's been like we've been doing so many things that sometimes they get muddled in my little brain foggy.
Yeah. Well,
My
I mean, my
menopausal
kids
brain.
are off. My kids are off school right now, so I told my husband, "Is like, I don't know if it's Monday or Thursday."
Right? Yeah, this is what happens. It just sort of blends into each other after a
Yeah.
little while. So I'm so excited to chat with you. You're a fantasy fiction writer. Have you been a writer your whole life? I'd love to ask that question.
Just about. I mean, I started writing really young. I think I was around 11, maybe 12. I started writing poems. I needed an outlet. I tried to read and I love reading, but I couldn't find any books that sparked joy. So I started writing my own.
Yeah.
But I was also going through a tough period of time at the same time. So kind of
Yeah.
turned, as a hobby that became a passion, then an obsession, and now it's just my
Yes.
therapy.
I love it. Yeah. I think that's pretty similar to a lot of folks who have been writing for a long time, that kind of I want to say middle grade or preteen years are so angst ridden, a lot of hormonal changes and all the things. We're dealing with all kinds of things. So
Yes.
writing is such a great outlet, reading too,
Yeah.
but writing for sure. Were you
And I
always
mean,
reading a lot?
I taught myself to read when I was 4.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah.
when I was going through all of this, I mean, I was also dealing with some other stuff that didn't come out until
Yeah.
later.
Right.
But it was a very lonely time, and I was trying to
Yeah.
understand. I did a lot of people watching to try to figure out how people, what motivated people to behave the way they did, try to figure it out
Mhm.
because I didn't feel like I could figure out my place in the world.
Yeah.
But there's only so much you can learn by observing. So then I
Yes.
did start reading to try to get into, even if it's fictional characters, try to get into
Mhm.
characters' heads so I could see how they
Yeah.
think and
Hmm.
then maybe connect that to behavior. But that only tells me about what these fictional characters are thinking.
Right.
So then trying to figure out how I can react and how I can think and how I can respond to emotions, I started writing characters that I could completely control and then dive into their heads and experience things through them.
Oh, that's so cool. Right? That you had sort of a self-awareness
Hmm.
to like, I need to figure this out. I need to see how people think. That
Yes.
is really interesting. I love that. So you've been
Yeah.
writing all that time and it became an obsession and you kept writing, kept writing. And then at some point in your life, can you tell this story? What happened? Like you got a diagnosis. So can you tell us that
Yes.
story? How did that come about?
So once I had sons, everybody's telling me, oh, they're very busy. They're very busy. I didn't know what that meant because,
Busy
I
is the
had
key
nothing
word, right?
I had nothing to
Yeah.
compare them to. And then when my boys started, because I have 2 sons, when they started into preschool, there were red flags behaviors or social communication issues. And in 2019, my oldest was diagnosed with autism and ADHD. But then when we were going through the ADOS assessment, I was like, those are the things that are red flags because I've done that my whole life. And then I was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
So then he got his diagnosis in July, my oldest. I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD in September that year. And then the
Wow.
following spring, my younger one received his diagnosis, not because I wanted to give it to them, but
No.
if it helps them to get help that they need early in life, then
100%.
it's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah,
But looking
100%. As a
back,
teacher, I
yeah,
saw a lot of that with kids. I taught elementary school for 8 years, but then I taught high school and special needs for a while and then English. But you get a lot of kids who don't have a diagnosis and you do kind of
yeah,
go like, huh. And then,
yeah.
there's conversation with parents and there's conversations with
Mhm.
the special ed team and should they get a diagnosis? And some folks were like so willing to do that because I knew that the supports would be there for their kids. And some
Yes.
parents were so resistant because I think growing up, like for me in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't discussed. And it was, so people didn't want to get labeled. And so I think
Hmm.
that has shifted a lot because now we understand like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, we all have something and we all have brain differences and we all just look at the world differently. So like, what can we do to support kids and people with,
Yeah.
like, so that they can, do what they want to do? Like, it just makes sense to me. But I think some of the
Yeah.
parents of my students were resistant because they grew up in an era when it was like, shh,
It's a stigma. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know I've had everything from, oh, you're giving your kids a label, it's going to haunt them their entire life. It's like, no, once they get out of school and they don't need those resources in school,
Yeah.
unless they go and tell the world they have it,
Yeah.
they can learn to function. It's not that they can't
100%.
learn to function.
Yeah.
My kid, for example, my oldest, when he was about 6 or so, we'd already received the diagnosis, but he wanted to talk to kids in the playground. And
Mm.
he would just go up to them and just stop right there.
Right.
I
Right.
want a conversation to happen. I don't know how to start it. Or if there's two
That's
kids
it.
talking, he'd come and stand between them, hoping
Right.
that they will start it.
Yes.
And so I had to teach him a script. Like,
Yeah.
I did this on my own when I was growing up because I
Right.
didn't know how to talk to kids. And I would watch kids and I would watch their
Yeah.
conversations and I'd write them down. It's like, okay, so and so said this. This was the
Yeah.
reply. Oh, there's a smile. This must be what I need to say when somebody says this. I formed my own
Yes.
script, not knowing that that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then I helped my
Amazing.
son do that. And
Like
so you
it's
can
just
learn those
incredible.
skills. You
Yeah.
just have
And
to
I just feel
actively
like you
learn
had
them.
such a great way of being able to recognize that in yourself and find a solution for that
Yeah.
and create the script for yourself. And then so like when you have these boys, you're ready. Like how to
Yeah.
help them, right? Like and it's
Yeah.
just like it's that just gives me chills actually because it's almost like you've been preparing with this for a long time.
Hmm.
But the fact that you have this kind of ability to recognize like the patterns and how people behave. And so I think that really serves a writer. So wow, we all
Yeah.
need to observe
Yeah.
human behavior and how
We're
people
like,
interact.
and
Incredible.
I mean, I told my boys, because I try really hard not to think about it as a disability, even though some people
Yeah.
do. And I mean, we're fortunate in that we're all high functioning, but
Mhm.
that doesn't make things easier. It just
Right.
means that we're not as severe as it could be.
Yes.
It's still I've had
Yeah.
I've
It's a
had
challenge.
people tell me, oh, and it doesn't frustrate me. What it does is it tells me that there's still a very much of a lack of communication and
Mhm.
understanding of what autism means, because I
Yeah.
get a lot of people saying, oh, we're all a little on the spectrum. And I,
Right.
I use
Right.
the example of, if we're driving down a highway and you got somebody in a semi truck and you got somebody on a motorbike and you're driving through a
Mhm.
hailstorm, you're technically both drivers, but you're going to have different challenges, you
True.
know,
Yes.
and yeah.
100%.
But I
100%.
know that, oh, and I lost my train of thought. I was going to talk about something else as well, but
Yeah, it'll come back.
yeah,
That's
come
that's
back.
my life right now. I feel like my train of thought keeps going to the left and then to the right, and then I
Yes.
just get really foggy. But that's my reason is different. My reason is I blame menopause, but I think I've always been like this. But now that I'm at this age, I can blame menopause. I don't know if that works. Nobody buys it, but
Yeah.
anyways, I try. So you when you received that diagnosis, did you embrace it was that like, how did it feel for you? Because it's one thing if it's your child, it's another thing if it's yourself. Like, I'm sure there's different reactions and different like modes of like, oh yeah, this is, I expected this, or it was a shock.
It was a shock at first. I mean, I went through a big spectrum of emotions, like shock, like, no, it can't be. No, wait, maybe it is. Then but it was really eye-opening. And I mean, that after I went through this, tumultuous, probably, I think a couple weeks to a month of like, is this real? Like, how am I different? And then I started to research, but I also started to like look back on my past and I realized that the signs were there. And I mean, like recently, within the last probably I think it's like 18 months to a year, somewhere around there, I was also found out that I have dyslexia too.
Mhm.
But it was just never noticed. Nobody
Right.
noticed it because I kept it under control. I masked things.
Right.
At the same time, I was always feeling like I was an alien dropped off on this planet without the
Right.
script,
Right.
and so I,
Yeah.
the fact that I was able to come up with my strategies, I mean, I never struggled in school, and unless you struggled in
Yeah.
school, they didn't
Hmm.
care. I was actually
Yeah.
gifted in propensity for
Hmm.
math and pattern recognitions, and
Right.
I've musical aptitudes and creativity is in there, and I
Hmm.
was always very creative.
Yeah.
But I've told my boys that, with autism, that was what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are the ultimate out of the box thinkers. We
Hmm.
are not afraid to look at things from angles that other people wouldn't even
Yeah.
think of, or maybe taboo, because we don't understand those taboos. We don't
Right.
understand social restrictions.
Yeah.
And it can be overwhelming because our brains are open to everything. We feel, see, hear, smell, touch everything all the time.
Yeah.
Like I feel,
Right.
you put your shirt on, if you got a scratchy tag, after a while, you don't feel the scratchy tag. You get distracted doing something else. We don't get distracted. We feel the scratchy tag. We feel the air on our face, the heat on our backs. We feel the headphones, the glasses, everything. And it's
Yeah.
very like, and that's just touch things.
Yeah.
It's all the
Yeah.
senses all the time.
All the
And
time.
and then it's like a computer with every program open. And
Yeah.
eventually, you're multitasking like nobody's business. But
Yeah.
then you occasionally get too overwhelmed and you have to reset and you get the swirly wheel of death.
Yes, of course. Yeah. No, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And I love that your boys have this um like sounding board, like because you get
Mm.
it, like if they
Yep.
have a parent that doesn't get it, then it's like the parent has so much more to do to figure it out, but like you can connect and relate to that. So it must make them feel
Mhm.
so much more confident and comfortable. And I think you're right. Like that's why we need to talk about these things because the
Yeah.
greater population needs to understand it because they have family members, they have friends, they have colleagues, they have, partners,
Yeah.
so it's just that like understanding it
Yeah.
better will help everybody, right?
Yeah,
Just, yeah,
exactly. And I mean, the biggest thing that came out of it is I gave myself permission to ask if I didn't know something instead
yeah,
of just assuming I'm like, okay, I don't know if they got it, but I don't get it, so I'll pretend. So I
yeah, yeah,
started
yeah.
asking, like
Yes.
when you said this, what do you mean? Like when you say bend
Yeah.
over backwards, are you literally
Yeah.
talking about somebody bending over backwards? Because that's the first thought in my head. And
Right.
then like, no, 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 that's not what I mean. It means you're accommodating. And it's like, okay, I will
Okay.
remember that, because
Yes,
I
exactly.
struggle with those things. Yeah,
And
I
I
take things
love that,
very
but I
literal.
think that's a good lesson for everybody, right? Like I, you know, I think everyone has a tendency to not want to show that they don't know something, but that simple act of asking and normalizing that is so
Mhm.
powerful. Like, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that old joke about men not wanting to stop to ask directions. I think it's a joke, but also I think it's also true. I think of my own
I
husband.
think it's like a social it's kind of been said so much, it's become a
Yeah.
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
Now they don't
Exactly.
have to
But
stop and ask, they can just punch it into their
yeah,
phone.
they can just punch it in their phone
Yeah.
and then we're good. But I had just, this is a side, but my husband will have it on like we'll have it on the GPS, like the phone, the app or whatever, and we'll be driving, and then he thinks we should go a different direction, and I'm like, just trust it, and he's like, no, I think it's the other way, and he has thrown me off so many times because I'm like, okay, well, I'll trust you, and I follow his directions, and we get lost. So I'm like, no, we have to just trust the map. The map actually knows.
Because
So
now we don't know where we are. Now we have to find our way back to the point where we got lost.
I
Yeah.
know. It's just how these things
Yeah.
happen. So even though we have these digital maps, we still argue about directions. So I don't know. Can't win. Anyways, so I love my thought here is that with everything that's been going on and like that has put things into perspective for you, but it also explains so much about your interest in writing characters and seeing the
Hmm.
world and creating worlds.
Yeah.
How did that affect the kind of writing you decided to pursue?
So, given the arc of my series, I had I guess if I explain the arc of my series,
Yes,
then
please
it
do.
makes
Yeah.
sense. Yes. So, my series is a dark fantasy, magic, adventure, some action, supernatural suspense kind of thrown in there because I get bored really easily.
Yeah.
But there's this our world, our time, coexisting magical realm with a veil separating us. We can't see across it because we don't have magic, but these creatures that do can and have, and they've been the source of our fairy tales, monster stories, and what have you.
Amazing.
My protagonist, Callum Walker, is a young man born with the ability to use magic. He doesn't know why. He's trying to make the most of it. He's able to cross that veil, or rather, he's dragged across that veil, becomes embroiled in this magical realm, learning about this world and all the beings therein. Adventures ensue. And we follow him through the series as he's trying to figure out who he is, where he belongs, because he's too magic for here, too human for there, and master these abilities to survive. And I
Mhm.
wrote this, and it took me until I got to about the third or fourth book before I had a reader point out to me. It's like, your character's journey trying to figure out where they belong, being too magic for here, too human for there. That kind of mirrors your own journeys, figuring out your place in society. I'm like, oh my goodness, it totally does.
Right?
I hadn't even thought about it. So, in a sense, I'm writing my own arc, and my
Yeah.
character is the unlikely, just would rather be a normal person,
Yeah.
but given these gifts that sets them apart from someone else. And
Mhm.
and I mean, like, it's kind of like me. Not that I'm saying my autism is a magical gift, but it sets me apart and makes me a little different, you
Yeah.
know?
I think that's incredible. And that how did you say book three? By book three, that's when you
By
kind
book
of,
3 or 4, yeah,
I mean,
somewhere
that
around
you
there.
wrote so
Yeah.
many pages, so many words. But I
Yes.
mean, we always like, I do think we infuse our books with like our lived experiences and people we've
Yeah.
met and experiences we've had. But like, we don't necessarily go about like, oh, this is this particular person, or this is me, or this is, it's
Yes.
just like an infusion of all the things. But that was pointed out. And as you were describing it, it was like light bulbs to me too. Cause after you had explained everything,
Yeah.
it is light
I don't know
bulbs
why I
because,
didn't catch on, but yeah,
right?
it did.
You were just writing from deep inside you. And it was like, that's incredible. It sounds like such a powerful story too, right? Like that
Yeah.
character who is part of both worlds, but also not part of them. I think that can, like, so many people can relate to that in so many ways.
Yes.
Whatever their cultural experiences are, whatever their life experiences are, or their family
Yeah.
situations. Like, I think that is so relatable. I love
And I
it.
know even though my stories are like an adventure setting and stuff, and I still present issues like anxiety, post-traumatic
Yeah.
stress, I have wholesome messages in there. I show and demonstrate the importance of family, friends, trust,
Mm,
finding somebody to
yeah.
confide in, facing your fears before they poison you,
Mhm.
um,
So
and
good.
those kind of things in this adventure setting. And I think that because those are so real and people can, maybe not everybody has been, flying on a dragon or tortured by harpies, so they can understand the fears associated with them and the
Yes.
results of those fears suppressed.
100%. I love that so much. We can only dream
Yeah.
to have some strange experiences. So good. So how many books have you written in the series so far?
I've published 4. I'm working on my 5th. A
Okay.
lot of it is rewriting because I wrote a lot more to begin with, but I'm revising them and
Yes.
leaving some pieces out and, taking some and
Yeah.
refining them. So
Yeah.
I'm working on my 5th, but I've written all the way to like my 7th or 8th book. But
Okay. So we can
yeah,
expect a nice long series. People love that,
yes.
right? Like once you're in a
I'm
series, you just want to keep
aiming
reading.
Yeah, I know. I'm aiming for 9 to 10, but I have to
Okay.
have numbers that are divisible evenly, so there's no remainders left over. I don't like odd numbers,
I
so
hear that.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
nines
that
are
makes
good because
sense.
you can break them into threes. Tens are good
Hmm.
because 5 and 5. 11,
Yeah.
not so good. So I have to do
Not
a
so good.
12 if I got to
Yeah, it's
there.
gonna feel off, right? And balanced. You
Yeah,
need the 12. I hear that for sure, for sure. So
yeah.
you were telling me earlier that you wrote several books and then you had a really amazing editor. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience for you and what that
Yeah.
resulted in?
Yeah, so I've had a bit of difficulty in finding a good editor. My first editor was an author who wasn't really I guess they were an editor, but I didn't know the system, so they just did a developmental edit, and I wanted a copy edit, so it wasn't quite what I wanted, and I was still learning the
Mhm.
system. And then my next editor was a journalist who said she was an editor, and, she did okay, but it wasn't for fiction. So, and my third editor was amazing. It was really good, but then she died. Um, darn
Oh my
her. I mean,
goodness.
sorry.
No.
I at one point had my mom proofreading my stuff, but by the time I got to my fourth book, I switched to an editor who I found through the When Words Collide at the
Hmm.
Alexandra Writing Society in Alberta puts on every year. And she did an amazing job on my
Awesome.
fourth book. And she did such a good job. I'm like, I want to go back to the beginning because there were characters in my first book that didn't get their voice. And I've grown as an author, learning
Hmm.
lots of techniques and writing and confidence. So I went back to my first book. I added some chapters. I did an edit with her. I revised some things, clarified some things. And then if I'm going to do all that, I'm going to give it a fancy new cover. And then if I'm going to do that, I'm going to take this same editor and say, hey, can you just, I don't want to change the stories in the second and third books, but
Hmm.
can you edit those too? Just do a
Yeah.
fresh up. And then I'm going to give
Okay.
those all new covers. So my first book currently has a new cover and it's relaunched. My
Nice.
fourth book is done and it's got a new cover. So I'm doing them out of sync because those were already done.
Yeah. Fair. Fair.
Second one
Fair.
is just receiving its new cover and
Amazing.
it's gotten its edit. My third one is going through its edit and we're going to be working on the cover
Yeah.
soon.
Oh, there's so many things here that I love. Like, so, and because you're self-publishing, right? So that
Yes.
gives you complete control over making these decisions, which I think is so phenomenal, right? If you went back to a traditional publisher and said, "Hey, I want to change that," they'd
Yes.
probably be like, no. But
Yeah, it's like,
like I'm
nah.
self-published too now, and I love that so much that you,
Mhm.
like as you grow and change and learn more, you can go back and see your own work and be A, proud of it, but
Yeah.
B, oh, I see this now, or I know that I needed this kind of editor. And like if you're beginning, you might not know the difference between a
Mhm.
developmental and a copy and a proofreader and all, like line editing and all the things. Like you just
Yeah.
may not have come across that. So it just makes sense, right? That you got an editor, but it didn't quite fulfill what you needed in the end. And then when you
Yeah.
find the right person, you hold on to them.
Yes. Yeah. Not too tightly
Amazing.
because they can expire as well.
Right, right. I mean, that's
Yeah.
such a sad story. Like,
I
but I mean,
know.
also like the fact that I mean, obviously had, or he had lots of skills, and I mean,
Yeah.
amazing.
And I'm always of the mindset. I know it sounds callous to say, and then they die, darn them. But
Yeah.
I've chosen to laugh rather than cry
Yes.
because,
Yes.
fewer
Yes.
wrinkles and
I
it
hear
just
you.
looks less ugly.
Well, and a life well lived, right? Like just,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
and no shade on on them or their family, but I mean, just saying the way you did is it is humorous, right? And then then she died. Like this,
Yeah.
I mean, it happens. And
It
then you're
does.
now
It
finding a
does.
new editor, but it worked out because you got an amazing editor. And that's like, I mean, it's so good. I think that's where we especially, I mean, all writers, whether they're traditionally published or self-published, I think that is an important step that we need to pay attention to and find
Mhm.
the right people and find the
Yeah.
people who, because I mean, all of us can say we do this, but there
Mhm.
are people who are really, really good at particular things. And I think as individuals, we have to be aware, like, I'm good at this, but I won't take on that because I think it's
Yeah.
unfair to tell an author, oh, I'll do this for you when I'm not that sure about it. Like I would rather them go to
Yeah.
somebody who knows how to do it
Yeah.
well because you can pay a lot of money for these kinds of things, right? So you want to get
Yeah.
like do your research, get recommendations, and talk to people for sure.
Yeah, and it's a
It gets
huge
tricky.
learning curve. Like, my first book was published in 2021, the one that's been republished, my
Yeah.
first book. And it's now what, 2026, so 5 years. That's a huge, there's a
Yes,
lot of things that I didn't know in the beginning
that's
that now
right.
I know, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could go back and undo those.
Yes. Yes.
And but I could also,
Amazing.
it was interesting to see when I went back. I was like, I was still proud of my first book, but I was like,
Yes.
wow, I've come a long way, and I can
Yes.
see where I started with this.
Yeah.
I had also made a promise to myself to keep every single thing that I wrote from the time I started writing. I wasn't allowed to
Amazing.
throw anything away, so I've odd time gone
Yeah.
back and looked at my hard drives worth of books because I've written hundreds of stories.
Yeah.
And they're all cringy because I'm like, ooh, there's a lot of tell in there, not a lot of show. And why did I use that word? And
Right.
what the heck was I thinking there? But
Yeah.
it shows me where I've come from. And it's not
Yes.
necessarily that they'll ever see the light of day, but they spark ideas. And there was an idea that I
Yeah.
started with every single story.
Amazing. Right. Yeah. Because it's all there. All like you've had this thought, and so they can be revived, they can be changed, you can bring them forward into another story.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's a wealth of ideas. Incredible.
Hmm.
I love that so much. So the plan is eight, 10, or 12, or nine, possibly.
Yeah.
um, so do you have another series in mind? Do you have an idea for another or is this my focus? I'm just going to do this for now, and then down the road I'll think about it.
I'm currently working on a side project. I kind of had to put it on the back burner for a little bit because I'm, re-editing my first three books and then doing new covers and then writing my fifth. It's a dystopian Robin Hood meets Romeo and Juliet with hints of Hunger Games that I would love to turn into a trilogy. And then I've also got I just had like three ideas come to me this past week that I wrote down in a notebook.
As they do, right? While
Hmm.
you're busy doing other things,
Yes.
they just come. I love that you wrote them in the notebook because they're there. I had an
Yes.
idea once many years ago, and I put it in like I just have a notes app in my phone. Like I don't know, a few years ago, I was looking at my notes app and I saw the same word here and down lower and down, and I hadn't really consciously been thinking about it, but clearly at different points over the years, I'd been thinking that's a good idea. So I finally said, okay, well, that's the book because it keeps showing up
Yeah.
in my notes app. So I got to
Yeah.
do this because apparently
Yeah.
the back of my head thinks I should. So I love keeping track of those things because you never know when it's the right time for that book or,
Yes.
when you
Yeah.
really, you feel like, oh, I got to write this.
Well, I love that you say the right time because there's a story that I want to write that's more of like a sci-fi future or Back to the Future, War of the World's Body Snatchers kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I started to plot it, and I couldn't sort it out halfway through. From
Yeah.
halfway onward, I was just like, I'm not ready to do this one yet. I haven't
Mhm.
it hasn't finished percolating,
Yes.
and it's not right. It's not time yet. But I have
Yeah.
the main concept, and I know
Yeah.
that. So that's
Yeah.
all I need to
Yeah.
begin. Yeah.
100%. And I do think that our brains do have to percolate. Like I do think that
Hmm.
while we're doing other things, that idea in the back of our brain is working its little magic. And then when it's
Yeah.
ready, we'll know. Because
Yes.
sometimes you try to force it and it just
Oh,
feels like it's going nowhere.
it feels very stale because I honestly believe you need to be in the right mood, the right frame of mind. And I told this to I did a presentation for a group of class, of
Yeah.
five grade fivers.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, like, every chapter has an emotion to it. So if you're
Mhm.
feeling really happy, 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 you can't
Yeah.
write a depressing, sad chapter or a scary chapter or an action, well, maybe
Mhm.
an action-packed chapter, but only if it's a happy action. You have to be in that
Yeah.
emotion, So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to wait to write those chapters.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and I've talked about this too, very similarly. I write a lot of historical fiction and
Mhm.
it can be on the darker, sadder, grief-stricken loss, like more those kind of themes. But right
Yes.
now I need to write the cozies. I need light. I need
Yeah, yeah.
gentle. I need
Yes.
lower stakes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need that. So I don't know what the reader needs, but right now that's what I need. So it's not that I don't want to go back to the historical, but I have two that are sort of manuscripts sitting on my desk, but just, yeah, you're right. Like there's something about what's going on in the world that makes me just like okay, how can I just lighten the mood here and just sit in the
Yes.
sweetness of it instead of like dig a little deeper and darker and
Yeah.
go into the loss and grief part, which I don't want more of that right at the moment. Like eventually it'll be fine, but just for now I
Yeah.
need to pause.
And I think as creators, we're also influenced by the world and what we're seeing in the world.
Yes.
You read certain books and you're like, wow, they were definitely influenced by this event that was happening while they were writing
Yes.
it. And you could tell when they were writing it. So I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
current events today, what kind of books are going to come out in 5 to 10 years from
Mhm.
now because
Right.
that we're being influenced by the tension of our world today. So
100%. And I
yeah,
think like when we're in it, it's hard to write it. But like if you
yeah,
think about even books that have to do with COVID, there's not that many of them. There are
yeah.
some now, but there's not that many because people don't actually want to revisit that yet. Give them another
Yes,
decade
exactly.
and then
Yeah,
it'll
I
be
mean
far enough away.
they're probably written. They're just not
Yes.
yet ready to be
Yeah.
released.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to publish that at this moment, but because it's too soon. But eventually we'll be like ready for that and we'll be able to read it
Yeah.
and be like, okay, I remember that, but also it's far enough away that it's not so visceral. Yeah, I think
Yes.
you're right. Like it impacts what we decide to write, it impacts what we decide to read. And there's going to be a lot of books coming out in the future that
Yeah.
are going to be um, inspired by. Is that the right word?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Inspired.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. But I feel like dark fantasy. So for those readers who like, dark fantasy is such a popular genre. Like I think people who love it love it. Like they're in it. They'll read every book in the series. They'll eat up all the series. How would you describe dark fantasy for people who are maybe that is a little bit newer to them or they haven't read in that genre yet?
It's not the happy-go-lucky fairy tales of your youth. There's big stakes, there's moral dilemmas, there's grown-up concepts, real consequences, and everything's just older and darker. Not older as in like senior, but
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, there's magic in your books." It'd be like Harry Potter. Oh no, this would be an older, darker version of
Right.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Harry Potter's a middle grade. Mine is
Yeah.
like I say it's young adult and up, but
Yeah.
that's just because there's no sex in there.
Yes.
There's
Right.
everything else in there. So,
It's accessible to younger people. But
yes.
that's awesome because like if you think about Harry Potter, it's one of those rare books that transcended the age category it was written for, right? Like it
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
like, grandmas are reading it, like everyone was
Yeah.
reading it. And then those folks have all grown up.
Hmm.
And now you're writing books that are like that audience would love this because it's more thematically their
Yep.
age, but also it's a little bit of that magic that they encountered
Hmm.
as a young person. Like I can just
Yeah.
see how people would gravitate towards the series.
Yes. And the majority of the people that I see buying my books are men and women my age, more women
Yeah.
than men, I think, because they're
Yeah.
looking for that I always say that I'm old school and I like the classic fantasy adventures.
Yeah.
Not so much spice, which is another reason why I
Right.
use my initials, J.M. Shaw, to publish so that
Hmm.
people didn't see me as a female author
Yeah.
writing in the fantasy genre and not writing spicy romance. Because
Right.
I just it's not my
Oh,
jam.
smart. Yeah,
Yeah.
smart. And that is interesting that names can signal the categories and the genres and pen
Yes.
names can have a like a nod to what they write. Like if you think of romance writers often, if they're using a pseudonym, they're quite sweet and lovely. Like there's
Yeah.
like, so I don't know if readers always notice that, but like it does like make sense the name you choose based on the
Yeah. It's
category you're
very
writing
like
in.
soft and flowy. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Sometimes it's
Exactly.
not, but and I
Yeah.
mean, like, don't get me wrong, I do have elements of romance in my books because I think that that's
Yeah,
part of life and we should write
for
it in there. I
sure.
just don't show what's in the bedroom because
Yes,
unless there's a
exactly.
sword
Close.
fight or a magical battle
Right.
happening in the bedroom, there's
Yeah, we're here for the sword fight. Let's be honest.
yeah, I grew up reading like Lord of the Rings. I love
Yes.
Game of Thrones.
Yes.
I just discovered Brandon Sanderson and I
Okay.
fell in love with his Stormlight
Yeah.
series. So,
Amazing. Yeah. Unbelievable. So good. I mean, I think there's so many crazy ideas that can happen. Like
mhm.
the idea that you can go right to like 10 or 12 books. Like it seems that like crazily far away, but also not because you're like in the middle already. Like, you're just,
Yeah, well, and
you know.
I can feel me reaching the midpoint and starting
Yes.
to arch over that
Yes.
hill as
Yeah.
I'm working on the fifth book. So I know that and I know where the series is going to end. I
Yes.
just hadn't settled on a number, but I do know that I'm getting
Yes.
closer to it.
So did
So,
you map out like the trajectory of your like do you have a like a map kind of for the whole series so that we see it from beginning to end? Like, I mean, probably you could read them standalone, like that story inside, but is there something overarching all of the series and did you plan for that?
yeah, it's just sort of a progression to this end. When I started writing it, I didn't intend it to be a series. My original draft was nothing like what's now out now. It was originally just somebody as a monster hunter, and it just sort of they took on a life of their own and kind of went there. But
Yeah.
I hadn't started out as a big of, I've never really been a big plotter per se.
Yeah. Yeah.
And each book and my series in total, I know where to start, where to end, and where
Yeah.
to shift it in the middle or where it shifts in the
Yeah.
middle, what needs to happen.
Yeah.
I know the main points, like this book has this main adventure.
Hmm.
This one has this main adventure. And then in each
Yeah.
book, I solve the main adventures
Yes.
by the end of it, but I leave unanswered questions to continue into
Hmm.
the next book.
Yeah.
Um,
Amazing.
I yeah, as if you picked up the book in the middle of the series, I've tried hard to bring elements forward so that you wouldn't
Right.
be completely lost.
Yeah.
But you do miss the backstory. You know that there was a backstory and
Yeah.
you miss a little of it. So you don't see my character's growth to that
Yeah.
point. But you can
Yeah.
enjoy each story for story's sake.
Yeah. I love that because it would, for one, encourage people to go back to book one because now they have unanswered questions that they want. But I agree with you, like having little snippets of previous stories there so the reader is feels like it's in context and there's something
Yeah.
more there. Like I think that makes so
Yeah.
much sense. And also readers who have read the previous books are like, they're in the know. Can read that
Yeah,
little
so I
line and
don't
go,
put
oh,
yeah,
I
so I
remember
don't
that.
yeah, exactly. And I try really hard not to bring up things that have happened unless it's relevant to the moment. Like if
Yes.
you met a character in book 2 and then all of a sudden you're reintroduced to them in book 5,
Yeah.
obviously I have to do a little bit of a recap. It's like, "Oh, I remember when we
Yes.
met and this is what happened."
That's
And I
right.
try to
And then
keep
the
it
reader is
short.
like, oh, bingo.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. I mean, it's such important things to think about when you're writing a series. I love that you weren't planning on writing a series, but then it became a series and then you figured out, okay,
Yeah.
where is this headed? That makes
Yeah.
sense. And because I think if people are planning to write a series, I think that is the way to go is to think about the whole trajectory of the story and the character arc
Yes.
and then how they all stand alone. But I think a lot of people do that, right? They write the book, the first book, and just writing one book is a challenge. You know, there's
Yes.
several writers, several thousands, millions of writers probably out there trying to finish the first book. And
Hmm.
so that's just this enormous challenge right there. Let alone
Yeah.
10 or 12 books, right? So I get
Yes.
it, right? You want to write that book. And then once you have the first one under your belt, then it feels like, okay, I can actually do this. I can do this.
Yeah.
And then it feels kind of limitless in a way.
Yeah, well, I try to keep it in perspective. Somebody told me once that, yes, there's millions and millions and millions of books out there, but they're only a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of people who actually published. So, of the
Yeah.
millions of people who are writing, how many of those finish? And then of those
Yeah.
who finish a book, how many get that edited? And of those who edit it, all go on to write other books
That's
and then
right.
publish, or even editing and then not publishing, like
Yeah.
it's a fraction of a fraction.
It really
And
is.
yes, yeah, exactly. It's like being in the top 1%, but your class is like how many billions?
That's right. Yeah, that's a good way of thinking of it. So, having now published several books and having the series, that continuing, like, and self-publishing is a big learning curve. I
Hmm.
know, I'm in it and I'm seeing it. I'm seeing all the things I have to learn. Like you
Yep.
wear all the hats, and you're a business
Yeah.
person, and you're a writer, and you're a marketer, and like all the things. So
Yes.
if there was advice you could give a writer who is considering self-publishing and you can think back to your experiences, what would you say they need to do or maybe do something differently than how you did it initially?
Oh, I think write down all the steps is a good place to start. I don't know if this is a piece of advice, but it helped me. I didn't know what the word marketing meant. To me, it may as well been, gibberish. So the first thing I did is I changed that word, and instead of saying marketing myself, I say showing the world I exist, and puts me in the
I
right frame
love
of
it.
mind. Yeah.
Yes.
But also to keep in mind that this is a marathon, it's not a race. If you expect to
Yeah.
see instant results, unless you're really lucky, then you should be buying a lottery ticket, if you're that
Yes.
lucky. Most people have to work for years before they even, like how many of the books that are, really popular now, old books,
Yeah.
older, genre books and stuff that are really popular now, it took decades for them to get to this point.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
the authors in those books are probably not even around anymore. I mean, I'm thinking
Yeah.
back to my, being a kid, my mom was doing her Bachelor of Arts and I was reading Joseph Conrad, Brontes, Lawrence,
Yes.
Atwood, all those greats and stuff, and
Yeah.
they had to work hard. They didn't get
That's
to
right.
be no,
Yeah.
renowned right off the bat. So,
That's right.
yeah.
It's I love that it's a marathon. It really
Yeah.
is. And there is so much to learn. And it's kind of what I
Mm.
love about it too is you don't have to try to tackle all the things at once,
Yep.
but know that there are lots of things to learn. So
Yeah.
pace yourself and start learning.
Yeah.
And if you're a
And
lifelong
reach
learner, it's
out.
fun. Reach
Yeah,
out.
reach
Yeah.
out to other authors. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not scary. In fact, we would love to help. I don't
That's
see,
right.
if somebody else is writing in the same genre as me, it's not a competition. I would love
No,
to be supportive because everybody writes their own thing. And who cares if
that's
we're all
right.
writing stories about like elves and fairies and dragons and stuff, and you're writing that
Yeah.
same thing about that.
Yeah.
You're writing it differently than I am. And
100%.
yeah,
I love that so much. Yeah, it's just it's like writing. I always think of writing as it's just not a competitive sport, like maybe it is for the very, very odd individual who has something else happening in their brain. I don't know.
yes.
But for most of us, I think it's exactly how you described it, right?
Mhm.
Where we want to help, we want to support each other, promote each other, you know, be in the same room, go to
Yeah.
conferences together, talk about books
Yeah.
because we like to geek out on all these
I
things.
Yeah,
So
I
fun.
never would have shared any of my stories until I received my diagnosis. I
Yeah.
had been writing for over 30 years before I received my diagnosis, and then
Yeah.
that's what gave me the courage to think, maybe this is my special interest.
Yeah.
And so that was the spark that said, okay, I'm
Yeah.
going to send my first manuscript to an editor. The worst they
Yeah.
can say is it sucks. And they came back and said, this doesn't suck. You need to publish. Had I not shared,
Yay.
never would have known.
Right. I love that. So
Yeah.
just write the book. Just go
Yes.
out there, write the book
Yeah.
and keep learning and keep working at it. I love this so much. And if you're writing a series, keep writing that series. I think
Yeah.
like I'm so inspired by you. Like my plan is for 6 books and I'm working on book 3. Um, but it also
Yeah. So
depends,
you're
right? Like if
halfway.
I have it in me to keep going, or if people love
Yeah.
it, then
Yeah,
you
or
might go,
spin-offs.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. If you
I
need a
mean, I have
change,
a little
yeah.
idea for a spinoff, but anyways, there's so many ideas and so little time. Oh my gosh, I just love chatting with you. It's so fun. And it's
Aw.
great to see. I hope that sometime we can actually meet in person because we've met now on Zoom a few times, but
Yeah.
it's so delightful. And thank you so much for sharing everything about your kids and your diagnosis. I know that's very personal, but I think it helps so many people.
I think
And
it
I
does
think it's your
too.
superpower. Like, I think
Yeah.
like
I
it's
think s-
just like your books are going to just resonate, right?
yeah, and
Amazing.
I don't keep it a secret because it's part of me. It's who it makes
Yes,
it's what makes me me. It's
I know.
how I think and
Beautiful.
ultimately how I write.
Beautiful. I love that. Thanks, Jennifer. I really appreciate you coming and chatting with me
Aw, thank you
today, and I
so
hope we can do it
much.
again. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Enjoy. Thanks.
Thanks.
I believe writers need sisu, strength, courage, and determination to get their projects done, and I can help you access your sisu. Are you working on a novel or memoir? You don't have to do it alone. Join us in the Women Writing Circle. We meet bi-weekly for 90 minutes to get pages done. Or consider applying for an upcoming group book coaching program to develop the foundational elements of your story in a supportive community. These 8-week-long programs include weekly coaching calls, goal setting, craft discussion, and personalized feedback on writing tasks. If you'd prefer to work one-on-one, contact me about one of my coaching packages at lisakovalabookcoach.com. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to have a coffee break with us at Women Writing. Don't forget to subscribe to Women Writing on Substack. If you like this episode, share it with someone who needs a writing break and a little inspiration. Happy writing! Thank you to Michael Jensen for his original music and editing, and to Mia Jensen for the logo design.